What is up, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. So it is time for the October books video, which I am very excited for. I have a little stack here that I've just organized roughly by the order in which I read them. It was a fun month, for sure. It was a fun reading month. There are some spooky ones in here. I didn't read anything straight up horror. Everything was just like a little bit spooky, so some of these are probably not as intense as what others may have read for the month of October, but I really liked a lot of them. There were a few 5 stars in here, so let's get into it. Alright, the first book that I read for October was A Devil Comes to Town by Paolo Maurensig. I could totally be butchering his name. This is the one that I took with me to Quartz Mountain when I was there. I think it was the first week of October for my writing retreat. I just wanted something really small to take with me. It wouldn't take up a lot of space in my suitcase. It is about a town in, I want to say, Switzerland, like up in the Swiss mountains, and all of the people in this town are writers. They're aspiring writers, and so the plot begins whenever a mysterious figure shows up in town who is basically the devil disguising himself as a publisher, and it sort of throws the town into chaos. So we do have a narrator who finds a manuscript in a drawer towards the very beginning of the book. And so it's sort of a story within a story framework. I did feel like that part was a little underdeveloped. We kind of lost our way and we sort of stopped seeing those parallels there for a little bit. And then it was kind of wrapped up really quickly in the end. So it wasn't a 5-star read. I think, let me check my journal. I did give it 4 stars. I mean, it's a really fun, it's about 115 pages, so it was fun for that short little while that I was in the world. There's some stuff going on here with foxes that have rabies. There's sort of a metaphor going on there with good and evil. I thought it was a kind of quiet, spookier read for Halloween. It is translated from the Italian, so this one will work for my Reading Around the World challenge if you've been following along with that. I think I have 2 videos up on my channel so far, and I've read, I want to say, from about 27 countries out of 195, so I have quite a ways to go. So anyway, that works for that. Next was a 5-star read. This is Lapvona by Ottessa Moshfegh. Most people know her, I feel like, because of My Year of Rest and Relaxation, which I did read a couple years ago, and I liked it. It's, you know, about a depressed woman, basically. I feel like it's like that book kind of encapsulates the millennial struggle, our mental health struggle, but this was very different from that, and I liked this one a lot more. It takes place in medieval times. We're following the son of a sheep herder and his sort of rags to riches story. Like a peasant boy who finds himself in the castle and gets entwined with all of the drama that's happening there. We have a corrupt governor. The Lord of Lapvona is very much like all things wrong with men in power. My favorite thing about this, the thing that kept me reading, was all of the ways that we find out that the different characters are either related or like we thought they were related and then we find out they're not related. All of those like intertwinings of relationships and all the emotional trauma, I guess you could say, that comes from that. The spooky thing about this, the reason why I wanted to kind of keep it for October, was in the blurb it mentions Ina, who was Merrick's wet nurse. Merrick is our narrator, and she has some sort of knowledge that kind of scares the villagers, so she's kind of known as like the village witch. And it says, for some people, her home in the woods is a godless place. For others, it's a godsend. So her character was really interesting, the way that we see her change over time. I think I liked reading about her more than Merrick because he's just sort of a young boy. I think he's supposed to be like 13 or something, and he's just kind of thrown into, you know, this crazy change. If you are a fan of the Song of Ice and Fire books, like just the drama, that's sort of like a little bit of, not so much political intrigue in this, but just the drama of all the different characters and seeing how their stories kind of overlap and come together the way that the Song of Ice and Fire books does, you will probably like this. I feel like the lesson here, the theme, is just that power corrupts. So if you like those types of books, you will probably like this one. Like I said, I did give it 5 stars. Okay, next up was another translated novel. This one is translated from Oh, this one was translated from the Arabic. So this was originally published in Morocco. So we have a Moroccan writer, Malika Moustadraf. She did a lot for literature told from a female perspective. Now, this was originally published in 2004. So I think it was probably more the 90s. I think that was like the height of her writing. She's one of those people who just died really young. She ended up, I can't think, the crazy part of her life story is that she, in order to get her stuff in front of people, she self-published. And in order to have the money to do that, she was on some sort of medication for something, and so she basically didn't take her medication for a certain amount of time so that she could fund the publishing, and then that ended up causing her demise. That ended up being one of the reasons why she passed away. So just her story is really crazy, but I did give this 4.5 stars. I thought they were really great. There were some really powerful ones in here. She turns a very critical eye on culture in the Middle East, Middle Eastern culture, especially the way that women are treated. And she was very forthcoming about those things. And she's sort of making those commentaries on society, but like thinly veiled by like the characters and like their interactions with each other. We basically see throughout all these different stories how being female, particularly in the Middle East, is a double-edged sword, no matter how you sort of present yourself as a woman in society. So I thought these were really great. They were scathing, but in a way that was just done very cleverly. I highly recommend her work. I'm definitely going to be looking into her more in the future. Then we had a much more fun, lighthearted one with Sign Here by Claudia Lux. So this follows our main character. His name is Peyote, and he works on the 5th floor in hell in the deals department. So his whole job is to go around and do research on humans and try to collect as many souls as possible. It is described as a dark comedy, I would say, for sure. There were a couple of times I actually laughed out loud, just for the sheer ridiculousness of it all. Now, I will say this was not spooky at all. It's not that kind of book. And my main criticism of it, which I gave it 3.5 stars, but my main criticism was that I felt like we moved away a little bit from like the plot, and it ended up kind of devolving into just like a normal family drama. It went a little soft on me, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, I was hoping for a little more oomph and pizzazz and fire and brimstone because like we're in hell, you know? I was expecting it to get a little bit grittier, and it just didn't. It was very wholesome. Like, it ended up being kind of like sweet at the end, and like it had a very light-hearted, wholesome ending, and it kind of just threw me a little bit. So if you're wanting something that's kind of a dark comedy but is actually really wholesome, then Sign Here may be the book for you. Now, I don't remember exactly when I read these, but also in the month of October I read volumes 4 and 5 of The Girl from the Other Side manga. I am trying to get through all 11 volumes by the end of the year. I'm pretty much on track to do that. I won't go into like the details. I find it hard to describe the plot of these whenever like you're in the middle of a series, because like you can't really do that without spoiling it, like saying the things that happened in like volumes 1, 2, and 3. But the art style is gorgeous. I mean, I mention these like pretty much every time that I do one of these videos because I have been slowly getting back into them over the course of the last couple of months. So if you like this kind of art style, it's sort of a spooky fairy tale. It's got like cottagecore vibes, but then it also is a little spooky. So it was perfect for the month of October. I love these. Every single one of these is a 5 out of 5 for me. Okay, next up was quite a disturbing one. It actually kind of took me by surprise. It was a 5-star. Did I just say that? Anyway, it was 5 stars. Another very slim volume. This is Diary of an Oxygen Thief by Anonymous. So we don't know who wrote this, or I guess I could do some research and find out if we do know who wrote it. This is just so, it's kind of a punch in the gut. Like, the prose style is incredibly blunt. The author says exactly what they mean, or the narrator says exactly what they mean, and you are very much inside his head. The main character's male, and the way that he views women, I mean, he's like openly a misogynist. So if that's going to be like a trigger for you, or if you don't like reading about that kind of thing, not that I like reading about it, but it's I don't know, it is weirdly, it keeps me engaged, I think, because it does like pull on you, especially like reading as a female. It pulls on you like emotionally because like you know how disgusting and wrong it is, so it's getting that like visceral reaction from me. And so in a weird way, the misogyny is like the thing that keeps me engaged because it angers me, I guess. I don't know. So I really did love the prose style. In fact, I think I said in whatever Vlogtober it was that I was reading this that I had already purchased the sequel on Amazon or on eBay. I just thrifted a copy on eBay and it did arrive. So this is the sequel. So this will be a November read for me, Chameleon in a Candy Store. I'm very excited to jump into that. So I would say you might want to check the trigger warnings on this one, hop onto Storygraph and just see what people have already said about it, because it's not going to be like an easy read. I mean, it's easy to read, but like some of the subject matter is going to be maybe a little bit mature for some people. So anyway, for me it was a 5 stars. And then finally, the last book. This is the one that I was really hoping, this was like my Halloween night read. So I was putting a lot on this one. And I won't say it disappointed me, but it was definitely, again, not as like spooky or as like actually horrific as I was hoping it would be. But this is How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. I don't know, his endings, I've talked about this with a friend before, his endings are not always the best. I haven't quite put my finger on it, but basically this follows siblings. So we have Mark and Louise. And Louise is she's like the older sibling, and she's kind of uptight, and she's the responsible one. Like she just has to be, she always has to be the adult in the situation. Her brother Mark tends to be, kind of irresponsible and doesn't really hold a job for a very long amount of time, and that kind of thing. So very early on, their parents pass away. That's not a spoiler. It says it in the blurb. They are left the house. I would say the first like 100 pages is literally just sibling rivalry type stuff and them going back and forth with their lawyer. So it got kind of a slow start for me. We start to notice weird things happening in the house. The TV is like switching on and nobody's there. Their mom had like a weird collection of dolls and puppets. And so you kind of early on get this vibe that, okay, obviously this is going to be like a haunted doll, possessed puppet type of story. And that is what it is. I will say at the end, those last like 50 pages, is when all the action happens, and that is kind of a pet peeve of mine when you're reading like, I think it's like 400 pages just to kind of get to the last 50 that are like really action packed. So I do think it could have been maybe even 100 pages shorter. That is my one big critique, is that it could have been a lot shorter. I feel like his writing is like weirdly repetitive. Like he'll say something and then the next sentence will be like basically the same sentiment, just in different wording. I feel like his editor needs to go in and be a little more harsh. Like there really should have been a lot more marked out in this manuscript than there was before it was published. But anyway, those last 50, 100 pages or so are very action-packed, and I do think we're worth it. We've got lots of crazy, fun, spooky things happening at the end. I ended up giving it like 3.5 stars, so not my favorite, but not the worst. Alright guys, you made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you guys are reading in November in the comments, or if you have any recommendations for my Reading Around the World challenge. I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.